Mike.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music, the best kept secret in music reviews. Today, we're going to do an album review, the 6th album from one of the founding fathers of, well, arguably one of the founding fathers of post-rock, Sigur Ros.
Sigur Ros.
Sigur Ros.
Bob
Sigur Ros.
Bob Ross.
Bob Ross.
Sigur
Ross.
I don't know how to say it.
Sigur Ros.
Sigur Ros.
Sigur Ros. Sigur Ros. Bob Sigur Ros.
Yes. Let's leave it at that.
The album title is called Valtari. Valtari. We can't really pronounce any of the song tracks. The album title, we're not really sure how to pronounce. This is an Icelandic band. As I said, kind of one of the founding fathers of the post-rock genre. Using, moreover, the main thing about Sigur Ros that you have to keep in mind is that guitars are used more for atmosphere than anything else. And it's all about conveying emotion. While there is a vocalist in Jonsi, he's really using his voice more as an instrument to add kind of a high range, kind of emotional appeal to the track, which I really like. Now, Tom, I'm going to just turn this over to you really quick and have you kind of give a description of like what they're doing instrumentally to describe this sound.
On this album in particular?
Just in general, and then how this album's different.
I'll go back a little first, because, these guys started in the 90s, actually. Their first album came out like 15 years ago. So they're pretty seasoned pros at this sound right now, and it's a sound that a lot of people have really hopped onto since then, but these guys were doing it a long time ago. Right. So in that regard, not to like put them on a pedestal necessarily, but I've always felt like they've been able to do it a lot more naturally sounding and better than most actually can.
Yeah, they have a very organic nature to their music.
Definitely. Yeah. Closer than anything, I'd say, maybe like Explosions in the Sky in that regard, just because they keep everything so real sounding. Even when they are incorporating electronic elements into the sound, it doesn't sound cheap. No. It always maintains that emotional resonance within it. But on this one, I found that it was much more minimalistic. If you go back through their discography, there's still a lot of movement through the tracks. Even if they are emotional builders, even if they are going for something soft, I always feel like there's so much more going on. Right. Here, it's like there is a lot going on, but they almost present it to you so minimally. It's like they're trying to milk every single sound for all that it's worth, get the most out of it, just efficiency with the sound.
Yeah, and that, in order to do that, they had to have just immaculate production. In this thing, I love the production on this album. Everything is so crisp. Every cymbal hit that you hear just like resonates. It's awesome.
Yeah. But there isn't a lot of that. This album, it's like the drums are very sparse.
That's true.
Especially when you get to the back half, things just kind of slow down and you just kind of sail through this wash of sound that's really more about just kind of drawing out that emotional experience.
Yeah, it's more ambience on the back half.
Very much so.
You might have little pieces of like builds and climax, but really the whole point is just maintaining this mood and this atmosphere. Yeah. It really, to me, Tom, it kind of felt like a soundtrack. Like I felt like this album could just, put on Return of the King or any Lord of the Rings movie and just play this and you have just a perfect soundtrack.
Maybe like Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon style. We're gonna have to try that now.
Maybe that was the what they were doing with it.
Yeah, but a lot of these tracks are actually pretty devoid of melody. They're just using these ambient chords and making them flow one into the next, and that's how they really move you. That's how they really pull at your heartstrings, so to say. And that's what this band is all about. But for me, I felt like if you weren't 100% emotionally vested in this music, then it was going to feel a little lacking. And it did for me. And part of that you just have to blame on the timing. The timing on this album is everything. If I was in a state where I needed something that was just going to punch me in the face with feeling, then this would be perfect. But I wasn't really in that mode while we were listening to this, so keep that in mind. I think this is going to be a very selective listen.
Sure, and I agree. One thing though is, even in comparison, like if you looked at this album and the emotional qualities it gives off, and even if you were emotionally invested in it, like there are other albums out there, even by this band, that are more emotionally gripping than this album.
Definitely,
and so even then, you have to kind of compare it to those albums and understand understand that this is kind of not as gripping, not as emotional. Although they did a really good job of doing what you said and milking every sound for all the emotion that could possibly... It's incredible what these guys have the talent of doing, especially with the vocal effects and how they write and compose these pieces. I mean, every track on here is longer than 5 minutes. It's an 8-track album, long track lengths, you know, but it feels natural. Now, I do feel like the album length versus what it accomplishes, I feel like it's a little slightly unjustified. You know, I think that they could have done some trimming, some more focus, and really, but the main thing that I feel like this album is missing is just the builds that just, the huge dynamic shifts that just knock you off your feet. I feel like they needed that a little bit more.
It's there like once in track 3.
Right.
Which I love the first 3 tracks.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
Right off the bat, those are just terrific. And from there is when it kind of just slips into atmosphere. And it's like they take those moments from the first 3 tracks where they were slower and really just going for that resonating feeling, and then they just kind of draw them out.
Yeah. It's where it dives into the ambience.
Yeah,
exactly. It's like jumps into this different part of the forest that they're chanting through. I really like the self-titled track, track 7. I felt like they used track 6, the ambience and the mood that's kind of set up there, and then they pushed that into track 7, which takes it, you know, kind of in a different direction. So those tracks kind of work together. I really liked how they do that, although I agree, all of the energy on this album is on that front, you know, third of the album. Track 3, though, I gotta say, is an incredible track. Every single time I listen to that track, just with the vocals and the dynamics, I just feel like I'm just blown away. I get covered in goosebumps. Wow, it is a good track. Overall, I'm feeling this is a solid album. I feel like if you guys really like this album, don't, you know, kind of take this score that we give this with a grain of salt. This is a really good album. It's just we didn't get an emotional connection to it, so if you're getting that, it's probably going to be an 80 to 85, maybe even up to 90, like somewhere in that range, if you're getting an emotional attachment to it on the Velocities of Music scale. Personally, since I didn't get that, and Tom, I know you're with me, I did like this album a lot. I thought there was some really high-quality compositional work here. I'm going 74.
I'm going 70. I liked it, but it didn't blow me away.
So low 70s from us with that asterisk of, look, if you love this, awesome, because that's what it was designed for. It was designed for people to get an emotional vibe out. It's just that Tom and I, you know, after 5 or 6 listens to this thing, didn't get that, and we kind of expect that after 5 or 6 listens that we should have an emotional appeal. Keep in mind, we listen to a ton of music, so, I mean, it's a little bit more of a challenge for us to get kind of emotionally invested.
Yeah.
So, if you guys love it, great. Tell us all about it at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. Also, hit us up on Twitter and Facebook. Tell us what your favorite Sigur Ros album is. Also, how you pronounce Sigur Ros, because we're Iowans with beards. We don't really know exactly how to pronounce things because we're kind of, when we're not on camera, we wear coveralls and suspenders, all sorts of that kind of stuff.
We're filming from a cornfield.
Really? It's actually true. We're in a house in the middle of nowhere. I'm going to go now and go up back and get some, you know, grass to put in my teeth, because that's what Iowans do. Guys, thanks for watching. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.